Demographics, technological entrepreneurship, and the future of Albania. Now, let's start with the demographic pyramid, and this is the demographic pyramid of Israel. What does it have? It has the following information. Once I have three hands. It has the following information. Here you have the age group, from 0 to 4, 5 to 9, and so years old. And here you have the number of people. So from 0 to 4, we have so many girls and so many boys. As that you get up in age, by the time you reach 100, there are very few people that are left. So this is called demographic pyramid. Now let's look at the demographic pyramid. By the way, it's called demographic pyramid because it looks like a pyramid. What about Albania? Okay. This is Albania. In Albania, it doesn't look like a pyramid. Portion of it looks like a pyramid, like here. But then it changes, and at the end of the game, it looks like a mushroom. So what does it mean? It means that the population is shrinking. You see, you have quite a few people at the age of 20 to 24, and then as you get down in age, you have less and less people. And this is why. This is because you have only 1.5 children per woman, while in Israel you have 3 children per woman on the average. Okay, so how is it connected to technological entrepreneurship? I will explain. This is the comparison. Okay, let's give you a few facts about Albania. GDP per capita of Albania is growing, not fast enough. It is growing, it's going in the right direction, but it's not growing fast enough. And now you are in about $4,600 per capita, but if you do the PPP, it's almost 3 times more. What does it mean? PPP, power purchasing parity. It means that this sum of money can buy 3 times more than the same sum of money in the United States. That's what it means. So the prices are low, and you can live comfortable with this GDP per capita. But if you want to compete in the world, this is not enough. You have to have much more than this. And this is why we come to our subject. A few economic indicators. Number one, the total dependency ratio is very good. It's less than 50%. What does it mean? Total dependency ratio is simply the number of people who are below the age of 15 or above the age of 65, considered not working, divided by the total population. So because you have few children relatively, then many people work. So more than 50% work, or supposed to be working. So this is a good number. Labor force by occupation is agriculture 42%. In modern agriculture, like in Israel, the number of people who work in agriculture is 2%. And also in the United States. And in Israel, 2% make a lot of exports. So here you have small farms, and this is a very inefficient way to create GDP per capita. So this is a problem. Usually, through a process of urbanization, people move from the villages to the city. It will happen here more and more, but in the meantime, this is not a good number. Industry, only 11%, this should go higher. And services, 47%, that's normal in modern countries. About half of the population work in services. Okay, so the other number. So what can we do about it? Number one, we can encourage larger families. That's the role of governments, and governments can make a difference here by providing mothers a chance to go to work and leave their young children safely in a place that they can trust. And then mothers would say, okay, let's have 2 children or even more. Or, if you want more GDP per capita, encourage technological entrepreneurship, and this is the subject of my talk. Why am I talking about technological entrepreneurship? I'm a scientist, I'm a material scientist. What do I have to do with technological entrepreneurship? This is because for the last 30 years, since 1986, I have been teaching a large class of technological entrepreneurship at the Technion. By now, I have about 10,000 engineers and scientists in Israel who took my class. That's a large number for a small country. Israel is 8 million people. Your country is 3 million people. So, and then I'll tell you why I started this class, although this is not my profession. So let's say a few words. What is technological entrepreneurship? Very simple. It's an establishment of a new technology venture, and every word is important. First of all, you have to establish it, as you know. It has to be new. It has to be technological, and it's a venture. Some win, many lose. It's a venture. You take a risk. Why is technological entrepreneurship important for the well-being of societies, countries, and the world? Let's look at the world today. We have struggling economies all over the world. We have struggling economies, instability in the markets. We have local tribal wars. By the way, if you look at the situation of wars in the world, there's no country that fights another country. Seemingly a peaceful world. Right? Countries don't fight each other. But there are many local internal wars, either tribal wars, Syria, Yemen, many places in Africa, Libya, terrible, terrible atrocities going on there. And consequently, waves of refugees, mostly to Europe, to Turkey, to Jordan. Millions upon millions of people are on the move, and it's happening very fast, and it's happening nowadays. Okay, so what can you do? Building sustainable economy requires development of human ingenuity. I tell many people in many countries, the most important natural resource of every country is not the mineral, it's not the oil, it is human ingenuity. And this is where we should put most of our efforts. Developing human ingenuity is job one of every government. That is a complex issue because it means selecting the best people to teach. That means paying them very good salaries. It's very difficult to do. But it's possible. And countries do that. There are countries in which the teachers are the best people to teach. Singapore, Taiwan, many countries can do that. It's possible. So how can you build sustainable economy and developing human ingenuity? What can we do? We need several things. Number one, we need very good basic education to all. It has to be good. It has to be basic education, and it has to be for everybody. The people in the villages should get the same education, the same good education as the people in the center of Tirana in private schools. It is essential because this is the future of Albania. Good basic education to all. On top of that, we need good engineering and science education. These are the people that open startups. These are the people that move the economy forward. Engineers and scientists are very important people. That doesn't mean that we do not need composers and musicians and opera singers and writers and poets. Yes, we need them. Yes, it's important. These are the people that give taste to our lives. But the people who give us life are the engineers and scientists. We must invest a lot in developing them. And before you heard in the introduction about my university at Technion, the first university in Israel, 1912, we started to build it. It was about engineering, only engineering and science. And these are the people that created the country, that enabled the country to sustain all the wars around us and the invasion of our unfriendly neighbors. So good engineering and science education. On top of that, government policy and support for startups. Governments can do a lot to support startups, and I'll give you later on a couple of examples what my country did to support startups. Some amazing things and easily done. On top, free market economy. That goes without saying, and in Albania you have free market economy. And it sounds like motherhood, but some countries, when I say free market economy, they say, no. This is neocolonialism. This is bad. I said, no, this is essential to create competitive markets and so on. And on top of all, dear Albania, no corruption. Corruption kills entrepreneurship. You have to take care of this. Every country must fight corruption. Okay. Let's say that there are countries that have all this. They have good basic education for all, good engineering and science education, government policy and support, free market economy, no corruption. Do they have entrepreneurship? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. There are countries that have all this, but they don't have entrepreneurship. That may not be enough. Also needed is development of entrepreneurial spirit and knowledge. We have to teach people entrepreneurship. This is a subject that can be taught. And once you have very many people talking about entrepreneurship, expressing their will and wish to become entrepreneurs, it creates a spirit in the country. And in my country, over the last 30 years, it happened. I saw it happening, slowly but surely. Born to be a technological entrepreneur. Some people say that to become successful entrepreneur, one has to be born with it. Okay, if you are born to a family of entrepreneurs, if your father has a factory, then you're born into talking every dinner about money, about sales, about marketing, about buying the essential materials, about export. This becomes your background. But most of us are not like that, right? Our parents didn't have factories or great planes. So you don't have to have such a father or mother. Can we teach technological entrepreneurship? Yes, we can, and we should. So who teaches technological entrepreneurship today? If you go to the United States and you ask the Ivy League universities like Stanford, Yale, Harvard, MIT, do you teach technological entrepreneurship? They say, are you kidding? We are the best of the best. Wow, that's great. Now, where do you teach it? In our MBA program. Wonderful, great. And who are the students in your MBA programs? Lawyers, accountants. These people do not open startups. They can be great managers for startups, and they will be because they study in excellent school. They can manage startups, but these are not the people that open the startups. So, let's skip that. It is the engineers and biologists, MDs, doctors, scientists, computer experts. These are the people that start new high-tech companies. So, these are the people that we should teach. So whom and where should we teach? Youth in high school. Yep. Start in high school. In my country, there's a large number of programs, usually done by volunteers, by the way, that go to school and they start project of entrepreneurship in school. And every student that wants to go there is asked to invent something, invent a product, maybe a couple of them together or so, maybe three, maybe one, and to produce a model, and to do the market survey, go in the street and ask the people, if I make this, will you buy it? Are you interested? How much will you pay? 5 shekels? 7? Maybe 10? How much will you pay? This is called market survey. And then they make it and they try to sell it. And they register a company in the process. They go through the process and they start to speak the lingo, the language of entrepreneurship. When they are 15, 16 years old. Start early. Okay, and then of course in universities. These are the people, the engineers, the science, and these students, in 5 years they can open a startup. They will graduate, they will work for somebody for a couple of years, they will come with a good idea, and they can open a startup. Teach them technological entrepreneurship. I can tell you, as an anecdote, that last year I was in Altbach in Austria, where the leaders of Europe economic system are meet, and I gave a talk and long discussions about entrepreneurship. And in one of my meetings, I met one of the minister in Austria, Veljko, and we had 3 hours discussion on entrepreneurship. He and his team, about 10 people. And several months later, I received a letter, a letter on a paper. It happens too sometimes, and saying that, Dr. Shechtman, thank you so much for your conversation. We have decided now to teach technological entrepreneurship in all universities in Austria. Their GDP per capita is 10 times your GDP per capita. They want more. It can happen. And don't forget the technicians in vocational schools. These are the people that can make things in their hand. These are the people that can push the buttons on the numerical control machines. They can make things, they can open startups. Teach them too. Now, about my class at the Technion, a few words about my class at the Technion. When I was a student at the Technion, I studied my first degree in mechanical engineering. The spirit of the Technion told us in many words, you will be so good that when you graduate, everybody will want to hire you. I said, oh, that's nice. But what if I want to open my own business? Technion didn't teach how to open business. They taught us to be good engineers and science. Okay, I asked around and I asked my professor to teach us. They said, no, we have program, forget it, go on. 1986, I became a full professor. And I said, okay, now I finished my promotions, I can do whatever I want. And I remember my old dream to hear lectures on entrepreneurship. And I said, well, why don't I create a class in which I can sit in the front row and listen to lectures and have some students with me also. Okay, and then I said, okay, I have a mission to teach as many students as possible the art of technological entrepreneurship. You know, as university people, you know that when you start a new class in university, it appears like 5 lines in the catalog. Universities usually do not advertise the new classes. It's not a procedure that is done. So if I open a new class, I would have maybe 20 students, and maybe next year they will like it and I'll have 30 students. I said, no. I am going to teach entrepreneurship. I should be one. I have a product. The product is my class. I want to sell it to as many people as possible. What do? You advertise. But how do you do it in university? I said, well, you want to be an entrepreneur, invent a way. I called to my office the head of the Students' Union. He came running and said, what can I do for you? I said, listen, I have this fantastic new school, new class. It is just for your future, for the future of each and every one of you. Unlike any other class of the Technion. Which is, of course, bullshit. But so is advertising, right? Advertising is selling something. He said, yes, this is wonderful. What can I do for you? I said, well, you have your weekly magazine. I want you to advertise my class in your weekly magazine. He said, yes, sir. And the next week appeared in the center front. You want to become an entrepreneur? In Hebrew. You don't know how? Come to this new class. He advertised this all summer. I took the largest Technion hall for my class. It's called the Churchill Auditorium. It has 600 seats. 800 students wanted to register. Only 600 could. 800 students came anyway. They were sitting on the stairs. They were hanging from the windows. It was a fantastic start for a class. Never before a class started like this, like a big bang. And ever since then, the class is very, very large, year after year. Okay. How does the class work? It's open to all Technion students. Every student in every department can take it. What do I know? Who is going to be an entrepreneur? And maybe interested to come. So they come. 300 to 600 students in the class, depending on the hall that I'm using. All lectures are given by invited speakers. Who am I to teach entrepreneurship? What do I know? Well, I opened a few companies in my life, but I cannot teach it. But they bring invited speakers, and I will tell you who they are. The first one are successful entrepreneurs. These are entrepreneurs that started from zero. They didn't have enough money to bring food home. And now they are a billionaire with a B in dollars. They tell the students how they started. From nothing. I bring only started from nothing because I want the students to identify with them. The students also have nothing. They tell the story, they tell how they started, how they found the first market, and so on. I'll give you a list what they talk about. Group number 2 are new startup entrepreneurs. These are people who have companies that started 2 years ago, 5 years ago. They are still struggling to make it big. They tell the students, we sat here in the second, I sat here in the second row in this class, and now, 7 years later, I have my own company. And I bring professionals. Who are the professionals? I bring a lawyer to tell the students what is a limited company and why you should open a limited company and not take the financial burden on your narrow shoulders. I bring somebody who talks about market survey. You should be an expert in your market if you want to sell products. You should know what is the competition, you should know the price range, you should know the development directions. You should be an expert in your market. I bring somebody who talks about marketing. Marketing? When do you start marketing? When the product is ready? No, long before the product is ready, you start marketing. And when do you start selling? When the product is perfect? Yes, if you are Mercedes-Benz or Intel, yes, then you wait for the product to be perfect. Or Samsung with their new Note 7. Only then you start selling. But you are not Samsung or Intel or Mercedes. You sell, then fix. Sell as soon as you can. When they start to complain, you fix it. You need cash flow. Be practical about it, okay? You need cash flow to survive. You sell, then fix. I bring in the patent officer of the country to tell the students what is an IP. How do you protect your product, your invention? Should you protect it? Which way to protect it? Register in the United States, register in Japan, register in your country? Depends. What kind of protection does it give? This is how the class works. During the lecture, each student summarizes the lecture on a form. There is no exam. All I want is that they will be in the class and listen. How do I make them listen? Because they have to write a report. They download a form from the internet, and they have to fill in the form, which is a summary of my class, and then they write the name, a student number, and they give a mark to the lecturers. If the lecture is good, they give them 5. If the lecture is bad, they give them 1 or 2. If the lecture is bad, as the student said, we never see him again, or her. If it's good, re-invited. Right? Okay, and because they have to give, at the end of the class, they give it to me, all the students. Then I know that they were in the class and they listened. There is no exam, and they don't have to be in all the lessons. Of 14 lectures in the semester, they have to be at minimum 10. Because they have military service, and somebody is sick, and somebody is getting married, God forbid, or something like that. Okay, the reports are collected at the end of the lecture. Attendance mandatory. This is not trivial. At the Technion, you don't have to come to the class. You don't have. You have to be in exercises, and you have to be in the final exam, but you don't have to come to the lectures. But in my class, you have to be there. No final exam and so on. What can they talk about? What can an experienced invited entrepreneur talk about? How they started, he or she. Difficulties he or she faced and ways they overcame them. Where were the financial resources? Very, very interesting stories. How did they find proper partners? How did they find customers? What is the company culture? Company culture is very important. Don't knock it. It is very, very important. Let me give you an example. One successful company in Israel produces chips for printers. You have a printer in your home or in the office. The chip is made by this company. So they sell millions of chips. And then one day, in their own research, they discovered that the chips they sold have a bug. There's this problem there. Now, the bug doesn't cause, only very rarely, on rare occasions, it will cause a problem. But there is a bug there. Now the question, what do? You call your company, the companies, as you said, the companies are very famous names in the printing business. I mean, these are the top names. Do you call and tell them, hey guys, we have a bug, we are so sorry, but we will fix it, or you don't tell. And nothing will happen. Now, if you tell them, they may say, we cannot trust you. We are not working with you anymore. So what do? Here comes company culture. They decided they're going to call the companies, take the risk, and tell them. And they called all the companies and told them, listen, the product that we sold you had a bug in that. It will cause no problem. On the rare occasions, somebody will tackle this bug. But we want you to know that you fixed it, but all the printers that you sold had a bug in it. And they waited to see the reaction. And the reaction was very good. They said, okay, we understand, we know the difficulties you had before you told us. We understand you. Thank you for fixing it. Thank you for telling us, don't do it again. We continue to work with you. This is company culture. Principles, okay? It's a principle. Keep your principle. Motivation. We tell the students motivation should be the startup itself, not money. If the startup is successful, there will be plenty of money for everybody. Money is a byproduct of successful business. Most of the lecturers in my class talk about mistakes they have made, and many of them failed several times until they are successful now. What were the mistakes that lead to failure? I will give you, I have a list of more than 100, I'll give you maybe 5 or so. Non-professional management by the technological entrepreneur. Technological entrepreneur starts a company, he's very good, the company grows, but at a certain point we tell them, hire a professional manager. Not, you are a great innovator and you have a great product, but can you manage a large company? It's a profession. We recommend that they will hire somebody after a certain stage. Insufficient market survey, lack of market knowledge. If you don't know your market, you are dead meat. You have to know your market. You have to be very good in your market. All right? Wrong money source. Wrong money source? Isn't all money the same? Not at all. Not all money is the same. In fact, there is very good money and there is very bad money. It's not the same. We'll talk about it in a minute. Partner with friends rather than professionals. This is, Israel, and I assume Albania is too. It's a kind of camaraderie. Yeah, we are friends and we hug each other. In Israel, it comes from the military service usually. These are people that saved each other's lives, and so they're great friends. So 3 boys just out of the military go to the beach to look at the girls, and one says, I have an idea, and they say, wow, let's open a company. Okay, that's great, you're great friends, but are you a good team to run a company? That's not necessarily so. Choose your partner wisely. Ego-driven entrepreneurship, I know best. I invented this product, don't tell me how to run this company. A humble entrepreneur is a good entrepreneur. Make your own decision, but listen. And build contact on all founders. Our recommendation is the following. If you open your company alone, just fill in the form, pay some, 200 shekels, send it to Jerusalem, to the registrar, and next week you have a company, start working. Simple. But you have partners. If you have partners, then go to the best lawyer in town and write the best contract you can, because in the future you will have problems. If the company is not successful, you will have problems with your partners. If the company is successful, you will have problems with your partner. What to do? Total consideration. Here I come to a problem that I face mainly in the Far East, but also in Europe. And this is called fear of failure. In many countries, failure is a shame. Shame on you, shame on your family, shame on your city, shame on the emperor, God forbid. And I tell them that failure is okay. Start again. It's not a shame on you. Many people fail. This is how it works. Second time, you have much better chance to succeed in your business. This is scientific. Research has been done. Second trials are by far more successful than first one. Failure, okay. It's not a shame. Start again. And in the Far East, when I give talks like this, they ask me this to be the title of my talk. Because it's such a problem there that people are afraid for failure and therefore they will not open startup. Failure, okay. Start again. Government role. What governments can do? Governments can open incubators to encourage new startups. I will not dwell on that. I assume that most of you know what I'm talking about. Partnership with VC funds. Here is something I want to tell you because maybe you don't know that. You know, the investment in Israel in startups is many billions every year. Huge amount of money flows into the country every year. But it was not like that in the early 90s. In the early 90s, there was one venture capital fund in the country. How do I know that? Because I invited the head of the venture capital fund to talk in my class. And in the second year, I invited him again because there was still one venture capital fund. And in the third year, he told me to take his son because he's bored talking about it to my students. There was only one. And then later on, in 1993 or so, the government of Israel did something wise. Governments sometimes do something wise. They say the following: hey world, if you come and invest in Israel, we are partners. You invest $6 million, we invest $4 million. We take 40% of the risk. The government takes 40% of the risk. Big deal. Immediately, huge amount of money started to come in. The total investment of Israel government was $100 million. This was total investment. After several years, the involvement of the government was not needed anymore. The government sold its shares, and for investment of $100 million, they took out $140 million in 5 years. They made 40% in 5 years. Not bad. Huh? And more important, they started a flow of money into Israel, and now there are unbelievable number of venture capital funds and all kinds of funds to support entrepreneurship. Form government, this is our government role. Form chief scientists in every ministry. In every ministry in Israel, we have a chief scientist. What is a chief scientist? Is a scientist who is in the field. So if the Ministry of Agriculture is an agricultural scientist, and so on. This is a scientist who can talk to the minister and the ministry, and he can talk to the people in the field. So this is the link between the government and the people who need the help of the government. Chief scientists in every ministry. And one of our chief scientists has a huge amount of money to distribute to new startups. Support industrial innovative R&D in startups. This is mainly done by one of the chief scientists who has a lot of money. Signed by national agreements and support by national funds. Okay, that's very simple. Form and support instruction and advice centers for emerging startups. In every city in Israel, imagine here in Tirana, you'll form 1 or 2 offices in which you'll have professionals sitting, waiting for new entrepreneurs to come and ask questions and advise them for free or for a small fee, whatever you choose. But this is something you can do tomorrow, right? To encourage and give proper answers to good questions of entrepreneurs who face problems, right? advice, and in Israel we have it in every city. Okay, VC funds. I have a problem with VC funds, and the problem is the following. Venture capital funds will give you money, it's a good source of money, but they want usually the lion's share of your company, that's besides the point, but they want the money back in 5 years, because they have to repay their investors. So they want the money back in 5 years, and 5 years or 7 years sometimes is not enough time to succeed in your startups. And then they say, well, we are sorry, this was the contract between us, 5 years passed, we will need to sell you, and then sometimes this company just disintegrate, somebody buys the IP, and that's that. That's bad. So that's the problem with VC funds. Okay, so where should we go to seek funding for our startups? This is the advice we give to our students. Number one is angels. What are angels? These are people with deep pockets, people who has a lot of money, who would like to invest in an area in which they are experts. Why will they have a lot of money? Because they just had an exit. And exits can bring hundreds of millions of dollars. So somebody is sitting there, after paying taxes, he has $200 million in his pocket. And now the question is, what do you do with it? Okay? How many cakes can you eat with $200 million? So they would like, usually, and this happens a lot in Israel, they would like to reinvest in new startups in the area in which they are experts. And they are experts because they had an exit who brought in a lot of money. And this is very good money because it comes with very good advice. These people are really interested in your company. It's not like a bank who doesn't care about your company. They are interested in your company, and they will sit down with you, and they will advise you, and they will give you the networking that they have. They have network around the world. They sold their products, so they know where to sell the product and so on. So this is very good money. Strategic partners is number two. Strategic partner is a company which has the market in the world. Sometimes you're a small company, let's say that you make a product, and this is wonderful, but Albania is not the market for anything, so you want to export it, okay? Now, exporting is possible, it's very good, but once you have to support your product, it becomes difficult, because you have to send people to sit in New York, or to sit in Los Angeles, or to sit in Berlin, and support your product. That is expensive, and you cannot afford it. Why don't you link to a partner who has the market, and your product will fit into the line of products? They will sell your product, you will make it, everybody will be happy. Not only that, they will tell you, you know, these things that you produce in black, in my country, they want them red. Why don't you make them red? Say, okay, fine, I'll make them red. Then you can sell more, everybody is happy. So they will correct you and direct you to the market. Bootstrapping is bootstrapping, creating a company without money. How can you create a company without money? Well, first of all, you can start by yourself as much as you can, working weekends, in the evenings, and then you reach a stage in which you need a computer expert. So how can you hire a computer expert without paying him or her? Well, you can give him or her something of value, which you have. What do you have? You have your company. So give a part of your company to somebody who will solve your computer problems, and together you will have a great success. And when you're successful, there's plenty of money for everybody, for you and for your computer experts and for everybody else who help you. And remember one thing, right now at this stage, the value of your company is zero. So be generous about this zero. Give a nice portion to somebody who can really save you from failure and help you make a great success. VC funds are last on my list, and I explain why. This is what we tell our students. What money you should not use. We tell them, if you don't have deep pockets, and most of you don't, do not use your own money. Do not use your own money. Don't sell your apartment or car for an idea because you are liable to lose your apartment and car and wife and children in the process. Don't do that, right? And don't take money from relatives or friends because you are liable to lose your relatives and friends, because there is a good chance that you will fail. Okay, so these are very practical advices, and our students appreciate. Okay, I want to finish with saying the following. We need more entrepreneurs, and innovation is not entrepreneurship. Innovation is wonderful, and it is important, and we need to encourage innovation. But we need people that will take the new innovation and make it into a product that can sell. This is technological entrepreneurship. Okay, so innovation, you hear this word, the Minister of Innovation was here, but I don't think she's here now. She left. Okay, so you have a Minister of Innovation, but what about Minister of Technological Entrepreneurship? I mean, she has to understand, if she were here, I would tell her that her role is, innovation is wonderful, but also encourage and help technological entrepreneurship. Because we need more scientists and engineers to open startups, and because there is a tendency today for young children not to want to study engineering and science, and this is all over the developed world, my country included, my idea is start teaching science early to catch their interest. Science early. How early? In the kindergarten. Teach science in the kindergarten. Really? Can you teach science, real science? Yep, you can. I do that. You can teach real science, no hocus pocus liquid nitrogen and changing colors of chemicals. No. Real basic science. Children are very, very smart. They are not retarded adults. They have very good mind. And if you explain properly, you can have it. I started a program in kindergartens in Haifa, my hometown, with the mayor. It's now expanding into science kindergartens. Not just program in usual, science kindergarten. This is something that you should see. A science kindergarten is an amazing thing. I don't have time to talk about it. I have a television program called To Be a Scientist with Professor Dan. On television, I teach science to first graders, age 6. Science, real science. Okay. And the hope is that they will say, but let me tell you, my dream is that a young child, boy or girl, will say, I like science, because I understand science. I'm good at it. He or she will be a scientist or an engineer. These are the people that we need. This is the theory problem. Okay, Startup Nation. Over these 30 years in which I was teaching technological entrepreneurship, and I have a part in this Startup Nation, because I have more than 10,000 engineers and scientists in the country who took my class, and then many of them open startups. In every given moment, there are 5,000 startups in Israel. High-tech startups in Israel, 5,000 of them. This is a huge number for a small country. Right? Imagine that you would have 2,000 startups, high-tech startups here in Tirana and around it. It would be wonderful. We make it. Thank you very much.
You're sort of doing some startup grind events. Because at Startup Grind, we also invite successful founders to talk about how they build their companies and do's and don'ts of building a company. So it's like free education in our global network. So in a way, you're doing it. It's amazing. So and we think globally that it's the only most efficient way to learn from the best of what they didn't do. But first of all, thank you for answering all of my questions, which I have planned. I just want to ask one question, maybe to all of you. So let's talk about education, to our professors. All right. So we've seen that one of the main areas that startups tackle is it's disrupting markets. They're so disrupting markets, their own markets. So they're so innovative in what they do. See, for instance, what Airbnb has done to the hotel business, or what is Uber doing to the taxi business, all right, all the sharing economy and so on and so forth. But it's also a way that online learning is becoming more and more viable and everywhere for startups. There are like Udacity, there are like products that offer you like micro degrees. In a way they say like, we're gonna teach you a skill, and if you don't find a job in 6 months, then we're gonna refund you. You know, they're so sure that you're going to be so good at those skills, they teach you in 9 months. And then you're going to find a good job. And what they do is they sort of mix the private industry experts from the top companies with academia and professors, in a way. So, is innovation in technology disrupting education as we know it? The first question.
Disrupting?
Disrupting the education as we know it. And what are your thoughts that how should education tackle new changes, especially in technology areas?
Well, I don't see the why would it disrupt? On the contrary, it gives you a sense of mission. Okay, you're studying, let's say, computer engineering, and now you have a mission that you want to open a company. So you will start looking at your education in a very practical way. I would think that it only encourages rather than disrupting education. That's my opinion, but let's hear from others.
Yeah, well, I understand this question because we are from the same country. In the sense that the traditional education that was, let's say, there is the American school and the Russian school. The Russian school was very strong in theory, in math and physics and etc., but they will provide knowledge, no skills. Now, the difference between providing knowledge and providing skills, I think, is very fundamental in these two parts of the world. In the United States, it's not that they do not provide knowledge, but they provide knowledge towards very particular skills that once you finish the school, you have a degree, you can find a job. So you can watch Discovery Channel and learn a lot of things, but none of these things will find you a job. So I think in that perspective is that innovation is sort of disrupting this old way of providing knowledge in general and reorienting this knowledge into useful skills that people can find jobs right after the school.
Well, I can just repeat here what I keep telling my grandchildren all the time. We believe into the power of education, but only the education that has a market value. This is it. The shorter the message, the deeper it penetrates.
How about the art school? How about School of Arts?
This is beyond my head.
What do you think, how can the education institution build a sustainable relationship with the private sector? Because especially if you want to teach skills, a relationship and a cooperation between private sector and university is very crucial. What do you think about that?
Well, I come from a university in which this is it. This is the name of the game. We produce people to work in the industry and to be innovative and entrepreneurial and open new companies. So it goes without saying that in my university this is the case. That's not the case in every university, because when you have general studies, you teach many subjects which are not necessary, do not necessarily end in a product that can be sold. But in my university, this is the name of the game. That's what we do all the time. Produce engineers and scientists that we later on either will do innovation, like I did, or make startups that will take the innovation and make it into product. Or work for somebody, which is also good. By the way, we did not mention entrepreneurship for lack of time, but that's also very important. Entrepreneurship means being an entrepreneur in your company. And this is something that if you want to discuss, I will elaborate for a little bit on that, but it's up to you.
Yeah, sure, please go ahead.
Okay, so here is something which has to do with culture. let's say that there is a, think about a factory here in Albania. Is it layered very strictly? Does it mean the following? If a bench engineer has a good idea, does he have to talk to his boss about it, or can he go beyond him? If he has to talk to his boss, then he will tell his boss, okay, I have a good idea, what do you think about it? His boss will say, wow, you're great, thank you very much. He will go to his boss, the division boss, and he will say, you know, my team is very good. The name of that person is forgotten by now. My team is very good. They came up with this idea. The division say, wow, that's very nice, I have a good division. He will go to his boss and say, you know, my division, contrary to other divisions, come up with a wonderful idea, and here is an idea. By the time it gets to the boss, the name of that person is forgotten. And he knows that, so he will not talk. It's another system, which is the system that we have in our country. The bench engineer has a good idea. He can call the secretary of the big boss, the owner, and say, I think I have a good idea, I want to talk to the boss. She will say, come Wednesday, 10 o'clock. So he comes there to Wednesday, 10 o'clock, with everything ready, and he shows the boss, and he says, this is the product I propose, we will develop in the company, what do you think? Boss will say, go back, I will call you in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, he called them and said, come back. My team searched it, yes, I think we can make it, yes, I think we can sell it, yes, I think it's a good idea. I will give you $1 million, I will give you 5 engineers, 3 rooms at the end of the corridor, go back and develop the product, report to me every quarter, come back at the end of the year and tell me what happened. And if the product is successful, in many cases it is, because he has the company support to make it, then what happens is the following. The company will open a subsidiary, and the bench engineer is a major partner. What will the engineer do? Whenever they have a good idea, they will go to the top immediately and tell about it. This is the difference between the democratic company in which you can call the secretary of the big boss and a layered company in which you cannot do that. Okay? There is something to learn about. This is entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship within the continent.
Well, let's take some questions from the audience.
I have 2 questions. Both gets the first one. I read that about 55 to 60% of the top executives in the US and the UK have graduated from humanities or social sciences. How do we explain that? Given everything is talking about business and everything. And the second is for you, President. The Jewish people comprise about 0.002% of the global population.
I don't hear you.
Yeah, now you hear?
I don't hear very well. That's why.
Okay, I will scream. The Jewish people comprise only 0.002% of the global population.
2% only in agriculture.
No, global population, total global population.
It says that the Jewish population within is...
Gotcha, yes.
And yet they have received 22% of the Nobel Prize.
Yes.
So I want to know if a Nobel mind has an answer to that, because I don't know how to answer to my students when they ask the same question. Can you explain?
You ask me why this happens?
Yes.
I'll give you an answer that a friend of mine gave when they asked him how come. He said this is because of anti-Semitism. Without anti-Semitism, we would have 50% of the Nobel Prize.
Again, question
Well, I don't know. I don't know to answer this question. I was asked many times. I don't know the answer. But it's a fact. It's a fact. By the way, another important prize is the Wolf Prize. I don't know if you know about the Wolf Prize. It's given in Israel. It's international. Very few Israelis receive the Wolf Prize, I did, by the way. And 1/3 of our of the people who get the Wolf Prize get later on the Nobel Prize. And I'm the head of that organization. Okay, just about. Okay, so I don't know the answer, but you're right. It's a fact.
Can I give you more interpretation of this, and I would like you to correct me if I'm wrong. I think this is for historical reasons, since after Christ they punished the Jews for betraying Christ. So in the whole world at the time, the Jewish people was persecuted, thrown away in the Middle Ages. They threw them out of Europe. They sent them to Ottoman Empire, and etc. and etc. And to be respected, they understood this thing that they have to be useful to the society, although the society was very antagonist to them, was fighting them and denigrating them, and etc. And I have read that the dream of a Jewish mother was that his son or daughters become engineers and doctors, that they were very useful to the society. So in the centuries, there are two people in the world that I know, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, there are the Jewish and the Armenians that have suffered during the history, and they have learned to be useful so the others cannot bypass them. And I think this is, to me, and my understanding is this is the source of the power that the Jewish people have and why they are so successful. My understanding.
Okay, well, let me, by the way, you are close to Italy. The people that crucified Jesus were Romans, they were Italians. Why didn't you? I mean, why we? they agree. In Italy, just across the water from here, why don't you punish them? That's beside the point. I can tell you that we, and in my family, this is very important, we advocate education. What I say to my children and to my grandchildren, and my wife hates what I say, I tell them, you start your education in the kindergartens, and you finish it when you finish your PhD. And there is nothing to talk about in between. She says I apply great pressure on them. But 3 of our children have a PhD. She has a PhD. Why do you complain? So, and they are professionals, and our son just came back from Stanford, and he's a professor at the Technion now. We advocate and we really push for education. And this is a Jewish tradition. The Jews push for education. And you're right in the sense that education is something you can carry with you when they throw you away, okay? Maybe you have to leave your house and maybe you have to leave everything, but they cannot take your education away from you. And this is one of the reasons why. And then you can apply it everywhere, wherever you go. This may be one of the reasons.
Okay, any other questions?
I had the other question about
Yes, the first question.
the high percentage of humanities and social sciences, top ranking executives. Why do they choose people with humanities to run large businesses in the Silicon Valley and others?
This is for me, right? You like to go first?
The question is why the people that study humanities are at the top of the big companies or managing big successful companies. Why they are not engineers and they come from the human group of sciences, humanities.
Well, I can tell you that in my country this is not the case. The people at the top are engineers and scientists. But maybe, people give me Bill Gates, he said. He didn't study anything, and look at him, the richest person in the world. My answer is yes, this happens sometimes, but only very rarely. You better study. And then I don't know. It's true that in many cases, large companies, the head is not in science. In my country, this is usually not the case.
Well, this is what I tell my students when they answer a question of this sort. I tell them that the human knowledge has 3 basic dimensions. The first one is vertical. This is how well you know your profession, how good you are at, digging ditches, if you are a physical worker, or how good you are in programming or in discovering quasi-periodical crystals and things like that. So that's the vertical dimension. Well, people who are characterized only with the vertical dimension sometimes, and basically oftentimes, are fastidious and not creative. To be creative, one needs a very strong horizontal dimension, which is knowing a lot about other research fields, about other scientific challenges, about other nations, other languages, other cultures. So the horizontal dimension is what brings creativity and inventivity. And maybe a part of the answer is in the horizontal dimension, which is sometimes present more in the kind of people you portray rather than in those who are just focused. But the dimension which is the most important for glory and success and the overall radiation of the positive energy in your environment is the third one, which I refer to as perpendicular. This is in the States known as look ahead, being able to envision, to figure out what will happen down the line. I had a neighbor back home when I was a little kid. He was basically a rabbi of Belgrade, and I was spending lots of time in the neighborhood. Actually, they lived on the same floor as myself and my parents. And he told me one day, well, if you like to be successful in your life, then what is important is that you're able to see X years down the road, maybe 5 years down the road, what will be that many will need, but few will be able to deliver. So make an effort that you use the time in between to create yourself into an expert of that sort, and also to make sure that everybody else knows you are an expert in that particular field. And then 5 years down the road, chances are very good you will be successful. So look ahead is an important issue to develop during the educational process as well. And in my opinion, that is best obtained as a characteristic if one travels a lot, if I talk a lot to people, and especially if one talks a lot to wise people with experiences, because the history tends to repeat.
I would like to give an example to strengthen what you said. You know, one of the largest companies in the world is Coca-Cola. They have 700,000 employees. The big boss of Coca-Cola started to work in the company as a truck driver. He's the CEO now.
Any other questions?
Thank you. It was fantastic. I feel like in kindergarten. I have two statements and I'd like to hear comments. For example, first one is from a gentleman which I don't remember the name. He's considered a marketing legend. He made one of the worst performing drinks, the second most sold in the world, Absolute Vodka. And when they asked him how you did this, he told, if I knew, I would do it again. So just to hear, what do you think about this? So can you really teach entrepreneurship?
Okay, the example is that it was a guy that, he doesn't remember the name, that he did a very good product. And then after, when he was asked, how did you do it?
He's considered a marketing legend. He made the Absolute Vodka, Absolute, the Finnish company, from one of the worst performers to the top performer in the world.
Okay. He took over a vodka company, a Finnish.
Say that if you have a marketing guy who says to you, I know what I do, you have to fire him. Because so now everybody knows what works and doesn't. It's mainly trial and error business.
Obviously, he's a good manager. And they probably read what Mendeleev said. They take 40% alcohol and mix it with water. That's good water. This really came from Mendeleev, I don't know if you know.
Okay.
And second is, you mentioned about Albania and how to progress. There is a view that says that prosperity came before education. So many countries like Korea, Japan became rich and then educated.
I didn't, say it again please, because I didn't.
There is a view that says that for many countries, education came after prosperity. So they became rich and then educated. Korea is the case, South Korea, Japan maybe it's the case. I don't know about Israel, but there are some countries which they had the environment to create entrepreneurship, and then they had universities to create education.
Is education necessary to have prosperity, or prosperity comes first and education after? When you can afford and after you can have good schools?
They go together, of course. You need, and we in Israel are not doing a good job in education. I don't think we are doing a good job. We may be doing better jobs than in other countries, but that's by far not, doesn't meet my expectations. Yes, you need to be wealthy to pay good salaries to better teachers, which will produce better students. I recommend that you read articles by a scientist named Hannu Shechtman. He is from Stanford. He puts dollar value on the quality of a teacher. He tells you in dollar numbers the value of a good teacher versus value of an average teacher versus value of a bad teacher. And if you read the numbers, you will understand that if you put all your resources into good teachers, this is the future of Albania. It is so important, and the return value is so high that this is really something that every country should pay great attention to.
Well, if I can add, I think your question contains an answer which is hidden but crucial. Your question, when you use the term education, implied the formal education. But there is another type of education which is much, much more important than the formal one, which is the education you get at home, in your family, which stresses the basic human values, the necessity to be hardworking and diligent and all the other things important. So I think in their cases, again, education was the foundation, not the formal one, the one they got at home.
Any other questions? Maybe from the entrepreneurs or startup founders?
Entrepreneurs are working on sport.
Hello. Thank you for your presentation. We had a great lecture about the entrepreneurial scheme or ecosystem in Israel of startups. In Albania, we are in the first steps of creating such an ecosystem. You said that in Israel there are 30 years. Who has been the main influencer of developing such an ecosystem for startups? The government, the communities, the startups or individuals itself, or universities? Since this is the first time, as I followed every startup grind session mostly, that the professor is talking about entrepreneurship. Here it's not common. Professors talk about entrepreneurship. So maybe the universities now might take a more bigger role to influence this growth of startups or entrepreneurs.
How it started, you mean?
How it started and what can we do in Albania?
Okay.
Because we cannot rely much on government.
Let's start at the end. Let's look back from now backwards. Okay, let me tell you what's happening now in Israel. This is quite amazing. Every large company in the world that you can name has a design and development center in Israel. Every large company. They employ so many thousands of people in Israel to develop new products. But not only the development is happening there, the ideas for the development is there. Every large company, IBM, Intel, Zeiss, I don't know, Samsung, Microsoft, they all have design centers in Israel. This is, by the way, a very interesting brain drain. People don't leave the country, but they work for countries abroad, for companies abroad. This is one circle that creates the knowledge of 5 years from now. These people know what will happen 5 years from now in their field. This is circle number one. Circle number two is the military. In Israel, military services is needed and is mandatory, and a huge number of young people work in high tech. They work in cyber protection and in cyber war. They also, people who know, they are at the tip of they are the spearhead of knowledge in this field. And when they leave, the same technology, the same knowledge can be used for civilian purposes. The third circle are the high-tech companies. What combines everything is that in Israel is a country of camaraderie. We talk. We're all friends. And so there's a lot of communication. These three circles creates a huge wave of entrepreneurship and innovation. How did it start? That was your question. I told you how I started. And those years, 30 years ago, it was not like that. In fact, when I was young, Israel was a socialist country to the left side. I was told that employing other people is bad. Why do you want to use people? Huh? Okay, so this is counter what we understand now. So Israel is a capitalistic country, but not like capitalist pigs, but this local social system that works. The balance is quite okay. I think that it all started, I have something to do with that, and this is that everything started more or less 30 years ago. So I have something to do with it. The government had to do with that to encourage entrepreneurship. And the fact that Israelis are tightly linked to the United States, and they go there and they study there and they come back, and the United States is the mother of entrepreneurship in the world. It all started there many, many years ago. 30 years ago, if there was a group of Israelis talking to a group of Americans, I could tell you, here and here and here Israelis, and these are Americans. By the way they dress, by the way they talk. Not anymore. I cannot tell the difference. I cannot tell. I look at two people. They ask me who is an American, who is an Israeli. I don't know. They dress the same, they talk the same. Their English, the lingo is the same. So this contact with the Silicon Valley is important. I'll give you an example. A guy was working for Intel in the Silicon Valley. He had a good position there, quite high, and he said, goodbye, I'm going back to Israel, I want to live in Israel. They said, what do you mean? You have this position, it's a wonderful position. He said, yeah, I know, but I want to be in Israel. They said, we don't want to lose you. He said, okay, bring the company with me. And he opened the first branch of Intel in Israel because he wanted to live there. It's one example of many. Israeli return, they bring part of their company with them. So they open a little one, and then they see it's very good. It grows and grows and grows. Intel alone employs 7,000 engineers, scientists, and technicians in Israel now. Our daughter-in-law is the designer of architecture of chips there. So many people are involved. So this is another way that entrepreneurship grew in Israel. There are many ways, but all in all, it was somehow a successful process that created the ecosystem, as you call it, of entrepreneurship that is now there.
Just to add on what Gregori mentioned, what do you think of the role of the government in the whole process? A few years back, while I was working for the Prime Minister, I had a very nice dinner with one of the former advisors of the Israeli Prime Minister. And he told me this story. When Intel wanted to open their first research center in Israel, he went and met the Israeli Prime Minister. And the CEO of Intel went there and said, we want to open a research center. And we have shortlisted two countries. One is Ireland and one is Israel. The investment is going to be $1 billion, and we're going to employ 3,000 employees. What do you offer? And the Israeli Prime Minister said, I'm going to offer you half of the investment. And then they chose Israel to open their first research center. And instead of $1 billion, they invested, I think, 2 already. And instead of 3,000 people, they employed 6,000 people. So at the beginning, this decision was not welcomed by the people of Israel. And when they see the outcome, they saw great benefits in that, and then they applaud the decision of the government. But sometimes the government can play a major role when it comes to, fostering a third sector. When it comes to companies, and high-tech companies entering the market. But how can government possibly impact the startup ecosystem? Only by being sort of an outsider, or can they do something directly for the ecosystem? What do you think?
Okay, on top of what I said before, which I will not repeat, the government can sponsor startups by giving them money for a good idea. And in Israel, it's very common. The chief scientist, one of the chief scientists of many, has a lot of money, huge amount of money. Right? And you can apply, if you have an idea, you can apply to him, to his office, and say, this is the idea, and I need your help, okay? So he will, if it's a good idea, and it goes under committee, it's done right, okay? The people are serious, and it's done right. Then he will give you the money, and you can start producing, and you can start developing your products. If you are successful, you pay back that money. From your benefits, from your what you earn, right? So about 5 years, okay, from your sales, you pay back. If you are not successful, it was a gift. So there's no risk on the part of the person who gets this loan. It's not like a bank that you always have to pay. And I know the chief scientist very well, and he tells me that if he invests $1 billion, he gets back $5 billion. The ratio is 1 to 5 of what he invests. So that's one way of doing it. But then he works with a system with an ecosystem that is there, and it's producing results. To start from scratch, I don't know.
Any last questions? Yes, please.
What is the woman position in technological entrepreneurship in Israel? The woman position.
What is the position of women in this story, entrepreneurship?
Okay.
Still quite poor.
Right.
Any lesson to give from Israel?
Yeah, I can give you several examples. There are women entrepreneurs in Israel which are quite successful, not as many as men. But there is no reason why there should be more, we shouldn't be more women. The system supports mainly women. Let me give you 2 examples. A young lady in her early 30s developed a system in data mining to advise countries in different issues. She had an exit a couple of months ago, and she got $30 million for her company. I met her just after that. I asked her, what will you do now? She said, well, no, open something new in that area. Okay, so this is one lady. Another lady developed she's a professor of chemistry in Tel Aviv University, but this is just one of her characteristics. She's also a wife of a very wealthy person who developed a huge empire of companies in the high-tech business, microelectronics, all kinds of things. She's his wife. She developed a product that I wouldn't believe that it can sell. And the product is very simple. It's melatonin. You know what melatonin is?
Sleeping ant. Sleeping ant.
Melatonin is something that our body produces at night and allows us to sleep. Right? It's a chemical that our body produces. But you can take it as a pill, 2 milligrams, 3 milligrams. This is, you can buy $100 for $1. But she developed a product which is slow release of melatonin. When she told me about it, it was a big deal. Melatonin, $100 for $1, slow release. Oh, okay. Her husband invested in her $100 million. He recovered it in a very short time. Why? So why? They, in studies, scientific studies, showed that if you wake up after taking melatonin the usual way, you are not as bright and clear in the morning if you took the slow-release melatonin. And so doctors prescribe the slow-release melatonin instead of the over-the-counter melatonin, and he recovered $100 million in a few years. I met him, and he told me about it, and several years later I said, what happened with your product? Oh, we are making money now. $100 million. These are two examples. There are other women that do that, but not as many as men. And it's a good question why. It's a good question why. Especially young women with all these fantastic skills in computer science and software. They can do it, but they don't do it as many of them as men. All right.
Professor Shechtman, thank you very much for being part of Startup Grind, Tirana, and or the Startup Grind Network. And Professor Milutinovic, thank you for being here as well. And I'd like to thank Professor Papajorgji for making these two very notable professors happen and come to Tirana.
It's a great pleasure to be here, and you are a great audience. And really, it was a fantastic event. I really enjoyed listening to you guys and providing some information at the time.
So one applause for the audience.
Yeah.